Hey guys, this is Dragons of Nightmare, WWA once again. Normal kill. There is heroic mechanics that I'm going to explain throughout. But overall, this fight is exactly like Paragons of Galaxy. Um, it's a bunch of mechanics, but in the end, it is very, very simple to deal with. Very normal concepts that we deal with pretty much every time we're in a new raid instance. So I'll try to explain through most of the mechanics, but in the end, I'm going to explain the four major things that you have to worry about. So the first thing, the only main mechanic that you really have to worry about that basically makes it how we have to do this fight is Mark of Terrar, Ysandre, Emrys, and uh, who am I missing? Oh, Lathan. Those are the main marks. You can see one of the marks here. They're the same exact debuff all around. They don't actually do anything unless you get 10 stacks and then you get stunned. So the way you deal with this is you split the raid into, the raid is about 200 yards apart, and once the debuff gets too high, so around 7 stacks, you swap the dragons so that you get a different debuff and you don't have to deal with your old debuff so that you don't get stunned. Pretty easy, pretty simple to deal with, but that's the main mechanic that sort of describes how we have to do this fight positionally, or else people would just be stacking all these. So each dragon has a main mechanic at 100 energy, a minor mechanic when they're on the ground, and then another minor mechanic when they're in the air. So I'll try to explain through all of those, but they all only have 3 mechanics each that you have to worry about, plus an extra 4th mechanic in Heroic that I'll try to explain as well. So here's the first major mechanic from Terrar. Shades of Terrar spawns 2 copies of himself. They both do breath and they both do a tail swipe. Tanks, that's all you have to deal with. You don't have a tank swap besides swapping for the Mark debuff. But you just have to deal with the breath and positioning for the tail. The next minor mechanic we're going to see is this Sleeping Fog. Don't stand in it. It's been in 1,000 raid instances before. We shouldn't have a problem with this. So that's basically all for Terrar. I was going to talk about Terrar's major ability when he's in the sky, which is basically, I think he just rains fire. Not fire, rains like shadow crashes on the raid, so that's pretty easy. And then he also gains a mechanic in Heroic that I absolutely think is the worst mechanic in every instance ever, which is Bellowing Roar. He casts it every 45 seconds. It fears all players for 3 seconds. You can't do anything about it. You just have to take it. So that's a game mechanic. You have to deal with it. Whatever. So when he flies up, we're actually going to see one of Emrys's abilities. So this is Emrys's main ability while he's in the air. Emrys we never actually see in this video, and I'm not actually sure if we'll ever see him until Mythic. But basically what it does is minor damage. Just dodge it and you're good. So here we're going to see Lathan's major ability. Lathan's major ability is called Spirit Siphon. And basically what it does is makes a copy of everyone in the raid. You have to kill them before it reaches Lathan, or else it heals for a large margin. Basically, I mean, the major thing in this fight is ads are more important than boss. In general, all of the ads that you're going to be seeing are more important. So the next major mechanic that we're going to see from Ysandre is this one. It is called Nightmare Bloom. Roots 3 players in a circle. Actually, it just chooses 1 player, I believe. Roots them, cleanse the root, or get out, just however you can. And does minor damage, major damage really. And it spawns this nice little plant you see here. What this plant does, this Nightmare Bloom, spawns Gloom Horrors, which are small, the small little ads that you'll see throughout. Basically, what they do is nothing except melee, and I believe they cast a raid-wide damage, minor damage, but they're important to kill, and they are also important because in heroic, Ysandra's added mechanic is that the Gloom Horrors do a aura that reduces all raid damage or all players' damage in range by 50%. So it's important to stop them spawning, and how you stop them spawning is by standing on top of the plant. You can see right now the plant is glowing red. That means it's active and it's actively spawning. But you're going to see this hunter come around to the right here. He's going to jump in the light disappears, and that's how you know they will stop spawning. So just do that immediately. Whoever gets in it, and takes minor damage, but it's better than those adds continuously spawning. Here's the other major ability, Siphon Spirit. Okay, so we're going to talk about the added mechanics for Lethon and Ysandre. So Lethon, we already talked about Ysandra's, the 50% reduced damage. Lethon gives a Shadow Burst. Basically what this debuff does is it chooses 2 random targets. They get a 10-second warning, and then they release 3 Shadow Burst projectiles towards the nearest 3 players. Basically how we're going to deal with this is have 3 players that always soak this debuff and take the damage, and it also applies a slowing effect. It can be dispelled, so we'll just have 3 players soaking continuously. So, and we're back to the normal fight again. We have Ysandre and Terrar again doing the exact same things they've been doing. I just want to go over basically, we've already talked about Lethon, Terrar. Emrys is the only one we didn't talk about because we haven't seen him. He only has 3 mechanics as well. He has Corruption of the Dream, which basically anytime you kill an ad throughout when he's in the air, it spawns a mushroom that explodes. He has a second mechanic that is a poison mechanic that is called, I gotta look. Sorry, there's a lot of mechanics in this. Volatile Infection. Applies a debuff to 2 random targets, lasts 90 seconds, does a significant amount of damage, but it's basically just a heal sink. You really just have to heal through it and make sure that you're not too close to the raid with the volatile. I think it's 8 yards radius. So those 2 players, you'll just be standing out doing nothing for a lot of the time. And then Essence of Corruption, which will spawn 2 adds that cast Corruption, which will basically raid wipe, but it's a 15-second cast. As long as you kill them and interrupt them, we're fine. So I know that was a lot of mechanics. I know it's a lot to deal with 4 different dragons, but here's the main thing. Okay, there's, I guess, 5 major mechanics you have to deal with. First of all, the mark. The mark is the main thing that you have to deal with in that no one really has to deal with it except the tanks. So tanks, you have to be on top of knowing when to switch. So make sure you know at 7 stacks, you need to start switching. You can see it right here. We got the whole process of one tank coming over, taunting the other dragons switching completely. So that's the main thing that you have to deal with. The second thing, get back up a little bit. The second thing is just avoiding all damage and all ground effects in general. First of all, you have the Sleeping Fog. Second of all, you have the Shadow Crashes from the sky that we've already explained. Third of all, you have the Corruption Bloom, which you have to avoid. And that's the second mechanic, is just avoiding all ground effects. We've seen these all before. So then you have the third mechanic, which is adds. Any ad that you see should be killed immediately. Shade of Terrar, Gloom Terror, and Corruption adds if Emrys is actually in the fight in Heroic. We have to deal with those things. The adds are the most important priority here. Fourth, you have the plants. So this is actually one of the more important mechanics. It should be listed a little bit higher, but these are the overwhelming mechanic. If these don't get soaked immediately, you will get overwhelmed. You can see how many there are. I mean, there's 4 plants at a time sometimes. These have to be soaked. We cannot have multiple of these adds running around. The 50% damage reduction in Heroic is intense. It can't be a thing. This fight is way too long and way too much going on for us to deal with tons of small adds that deal 50% damage reduction to us. And then the fifth is the basic dragon mechanics that you have to deal with. Tail Swipe into Dragon Breath. It's normal things we've dealt with forever. All of these mechanics we've seen before. I promise. There's nothing new in a heroic difficulty raid. So, that is Dragons of Nightmare, normal. On to the next video.